Inside a skyscraper in central Hong Kong, where guards are stationed every 5 steps and a sentry every 10, a Yakuza leader reminisces about his bestial actions during the invasion of China, proudly recounting them to the woman in his arms as if they were great achievements. Suddenly, the power in the building is cut off, plunging the room into darkness. A fully armed masked assassin appears, moving with incredible skill and leaving a trail of bloodshed wherever he goes. Upon hearing the screams of his bodyguards, the Yakuza leader activates the emergency defense system, isolating himself behind bulletproof glass. As the assassin approaches him, the Yakuza leader tries to buy him off with a large sum of money, warning him that his death will trigger a $100 million revenge fund. Unmoved, the assassin shatters the bulletproof glass and ends the Yakuza leader's life. In a cheap hotel room, a few illegal immigrants reside, hired by boss for various criminal activities in Hong Kong. Lee, however, is an exception. When tasked with collecting debts, he learns that the debtor is an orphan caring for a sick mother. Not only does he fail to collect the money, but he also fixes their leaky faucet. Boss orders Ajay to be kicked out, mocking him by suggesting he should pursue the $100 million bounty from the Yakuza's revenge fund instead of dreaming of big deals. Upon realizing that this line of work isn't necessarily about committing heinous acts, Lee decides to give it a try. Inside the skyscraper, those who have come to register for the revenge fund are globally renowned assassins. Seeing Lee's appearance, the security guards attempt to forcibly remove him, but Lee swiftly incapacitates them with a few moves. At this moment, a short man named Eric steps in and intervenes, presenting an invitation letter and claiming Lee as his associate. With that, the two enter the meeting room. The lawyer serves as the head of the revenge fund and begins outlining the requirements for accessing the fund. The late Yakuza leader established a $100 million fund, accessible upon his death, to reward those who seek revenge on his behalf. Of course, participants are required to pay a $5 million deposit. Hong Kong police officer Simon storms in with a large group of officers, interrupting the meeting. While the attendees may be international criminals, their meeting does not violate any laws. Simon's purpose is to gather information on the participants. However, one person stands out among them, Eric, who brought Lee in. Involvement in competing with international assassin groups by putting up $5 million seems rather perplexing. Among those participating in this revenge mission, Yakuza leader's grandson Sato is the most powerful. The lawyer approaches Sato with insider information, demanding $10 million. Sato wastes no time and promptly writes out a check. It turns out a military ticket was found undissolved in the victim's stomach, suggesting that the killer forced the Yakuza leader to swallow it. Once the ticket number is analyzed, the latest information will be sent. As they head downstairs, they encounter Sato. Learning that Sato is also participating in the revenge fund, Lee finds the situation suspicious. Seeing Lee's shabby clothes, Eric believes that if Lee wants to make big deals, he needs to dress the part. Eric helps Lee change into more presentable attire and, to test Lee's abilities, accepts an assassination job on his behalf. The two arrive at an amusement park, targeting a mafia boss who appears lovingly playful with his child. Lee slowly approaches the target with a kitchen knife, but he struggles internally. Just then, Lee spots the hitman sent by boss and shouts a warning. Although the mafia boss is injured, he manages to take cover in time. Bullets start flying, plunging the amusement park into chaos. Soon after, the police arrive, and boss's hitmen are either fleeing or being taken down. Eric and Lee are later brought in for questioning at the police station. Eric's daughter, Gigi, who happens to be a lawyer, manages to bail them out. Observing Lee's hesitation when it comes to critical moments, Eric realizes that despite Lee's skills, he's not cut out to be an assassin. Eric finds an excuse to send Lee away halfway, but Lee, now homeless, has already sneaked into Eric's house. When Gigi returns home and encounters Lee, she invites him to go ice skating. Gigi wants Lee to be her informant. If her father is involved in any wrongdoing, Lee is to report it to her. Upon returning home, Eric urgently informs Lee about new information from the lawyer regarding the military ticket found in the Yakuza leader's stomach. This clue could lead to the killer, but the information has already been sold to 5 other parties. Additionally, the lawyer offers them a free piece of information. Over the past 5 years, there has been a killer known as the King of Killers, who murders without payment, targeting those who have committed many wrongdoings. It is now likely that the Yakuza leader was killed by the King of Killers. Before leaving, Lee asks who was the first person to buy the information. Impressed by Lee's intelligence, the lawyer reveals that it was Yakuza leader's grandson, Sato. Seeing that they are already behind, Lee suggests tracking Sato to find the killer more quickly. A few days later, the lawyer hands the repaired military ticket to Sato, who discovers the original owner. Sato then sets out with a large group of assassins, while Lee and Eric secretly follow behind. The military ticket originated from an old man who lives in a rundown apartment building. When Sato's hitmen arrive, they find nobody home and decide to wait for the old man's return. A hitman disguised as a priest knocks on the door, and when it opens, they aim their guns at him. The fake priest calmly pulls out a grenade, causing the hitman to hesitate. At that moment, the old man appears trembling with a cane at the end of the hallway, and a gunfight ensues. Lee and Eric seize the opportunity to grab the old man and escape, leaving him terrified by the ordeal. Just then, the fake priest throws a grenade at them, but Lee kicks it back. As they reach the door, they encounter Sato's top bodyguard, a formidable opponent. Despite a fierce fight, Lee gains the upper hand. However, the bodyguard resorts to his secret weapon, a ring equipped with a laser that disrupts Lee's vision. Lee starts to falter and is knocked to the ground. At this moment, Sato arrives with his men, surrounding them. Suddenly, Eric claims innocence, but when he looks back at the old man, he sees that he has passed away. Enraged, Sato fires several shots at the corpse. Seeing that they are not the targets and not worth his trouble, Sato lets them go and leaves. Back at home, Eric confesses that he is the king of killers. Lee is bewildered by this revelation. Eric explains that everyone assumed he was the king of killers because he recently found out someone was looking for a hitman, only to discover that the employer was the old man. Family was brutally slaughtered by the Yakuza during the war, and decades later, the Yakuza returned to Hong Kong as businessmen. Eric initially intended to scam some money from the old man, who had no money left except a stack of worthless military tickets. Surprisingly, someone bought all the military tickets, and the old man immediately came to Eric with the money. Unable to deceive him, Eric told the old man to pay him if he saw news of the Yakuza's death. The next day, the Yakuza died, and the money was wired to Eric's account. Later, Eric learns that the revenge fund has been activated, and he worries about being implicated. To track the situation, he mortgages his property to get money and registers as a contestant pretending to be a hitman. Eric's participation serves two purposes: to monitor the case and potentially earn $1 billion if he finds the king of killers. Meanwhile, the lawyer quickly discovers that the old man wired money to Eric after the Yakuza's death. That evening, while watching the news, Eric becomes nervous upon learning about a fire at his previous residence. Before he can react, the power to the house is cut off, and an assassin with night vision goggles appears. In the darkness, Lee and the hitman engage in a tense struggle, eventually managing to escape from the building. At this point, the whole world believes Eric is the king of killers, and he knows he's in deep trouble. He wants Lee to turn him in for the reward, but Lee refuses to do such a thing. So, Eric gives Lee his only valuable possession, a gold watch, hoping he'll take care of Gigi. However, Lee also refuses. Just then, Eric receives a text message from his daughter, inviting him to a party. They follow the address to the party, where Officer Simon is also present. Simon knows Eric is innocent and doesn't want them to be unjustly implicated. Lee is puzzled by how much Officer Simon knows. Could Officer Simon be the king of killers? Simon retorts, "Then why don't you kill me and claim the $100 million reward?" Lee responds that nobody would believe Simon is the king of killers. Eric realizes there's no escape. Taking Lee with him, Eric goes to explain everything to the lawyer. They reach the top floor of the building, where Lee asks if killing Eric would get him the money. Before Eric can finish speaking, he is shot and killed. The lawyer explains that theoretically, yes, but he's no longer in control. Sato arrives with a horde of killers, declaring that no matter who kills the king of killers, he will claim the reward. Eric praises Lee's quick thinking as the final battle begins. The minions are no match for Lee, but they are outnumbered. Lee and Eric are trapped, and at a critical moment, the real king of killers appears. He removes his glasses to reveal his true identity, Officer Simon. In this moment, he becomes unstoppable, swiftly dispatching all opponents until only 3 people remain on each side. Eric decides to take on the female assassin directly, but she kicks him several meters away with one swift motion. Simon faces off against Sato, while Lee confronts the top hitman. Drawing from his experience with superiors, Lee becomes smarter, using a belt as a weapon and maintaining an appropriate distance to nullify the laser's effectiveness, gradually gaining the upper hand. Eric battles the female assassin, initially appearing outmatched. However, Eric exploits her vulnerability of being barefoot, throwing a glass and creating a floor full of shards, leaving the female assassin helpless. Sato proves to be skilled with a samurai sword, and Simon starts to struggle. Lee comes to his aid, saving him from certain death. Sato, ruthless as ever, doesn't hesitate to kill even his own female assassin in his pursuit of Lee. The top hitman finally faces off against Simon, who swiftly takes him down with a decisive move. Lee engages Sato, breaking his samurai sword in half with a powerful kick. In the end, Sato falls to Lee, impaling himself on the broken sword. The lawyer arrives and begins concocting a story, claiming Sato to be the king of killers who murdered his grandfather for inheritance. Simon uncovered the truth, with the help of 2 diligent citizens. Eric immediately understands and tells the lawyer to proceed with the plan. On the cruise ship, the lawyer arranges the money for the 3, while Simon informs Lee that he plans to retire, leaving the position of king of killers to him. From now on, the task of policing evil and punishing villains will be entrusted to Lee.